the World Cup draw. Canada finding out their opponents for the 2026 World Cup, and it could be Italy in that first game. UEFA Euro Playoff A being that first opponent. Jesse Marsch wasn't so pleased with that result because he wants to be able to plan. He wants to be able to plan for months. And then Qatar and Switzerland in Vancouver. It wasn't the easiest group for Canada, but Brendan, let's get right into it. Your initial reaction when you saw the balls come out of the pots in what was certainly an event in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it was a spectacle. It was always going to be, with Donald Trump very much involved, and the fact that, it is America and the United States. They do everything bigger, not just in Texas, right? But look, I think most people thought it started so well to get Switzerland, to get Qatar. It just felt like maybe Canada wouldn't get a second European team, and of course they're guaranteed one, and we don't know who it is. So Jesse Marsch is understandably annoyed because he can't prepare the way that he wants, and I think everyone is fearing number 12 Italy, but talk to any Italian Canadian, talk to anyone in Italy, and they're fearing that Italy, can survive that playoff, starting with Northern Ireland. It's not going to be an easy playoff route for them. So the disappointing part is that we've come away from the draw still with so much uncertainty, Alex.
Yeah. On the other hand, you still, once the game's finalized in March and you get that third team, you still got a few months. So it's more just like, it's understandably frustrating because you're going to be doing all this prep for Switzerland and Qatar, and you're still just going to be waiting for your first game, like the team you open the tournament with. A lot of, Olive Woodbridge is going to be hanging on in anticipation in March and et cetera. But overall, I was happy with the draw. I do want to say, just as like an opening thought, I see a lot of people being like, this is a tough draw. Pot 2, Switzerland, like, man, Switzerland's a tough team. Okay. Look at pot 2. There isn't a bad team. It's pot 2. Like it's like being like, oh, Canada got, if they were not in pot 1, like, oh, Canada got X team out of pot 1. Yeah, all the pot 1 teams are good usually, except the hosts. I'm just looking at the pot 2 teams now. Like, you want Morocco instead? You want Croatia, Uruguay, Japan, Senegal? It's pot 2 for a reason. All the teams are good. So I kind of laugh at that notion because you're always going to get a good team. So when you look at the Switzerland, good team, always make it out of the group, always at these tournaments, never won a World Cup knockout game. We've kind of had this issue of plateauing at like round of 16 quarterfinals in Euros as well. Don't really have a star. Plays a style that Canada matches up well against. That's the sort of thing I like. Whereas, yeah, okay, you're maybe, if you get some other team that on paper might be a little easier than Switzerland because they have a lower ranking, you're thinking, oh, maybe they have a star, maybe they play a physically taxing style of play that's going to be hard for Canada to match. I think they're looking at Switzerland stylistically, they're happy. Pot 3, which I think was the real swing, because you could end up with a team as good as Norway, who is a borderline pot 2, pot 1 team the way they're playing. To get Qatar, which by the ELO ratings is the worst team in the pot, you're laughing. That more than makes up for anything. Pot 4 sullies it a bit, I will admit, because just with the uncertainty, if it's anyone but Italy out of that pot, you're happy. If it's Italy that comes out, you're a bit miffed. But overall, I think you can't discount how important the Qatar draw is, really. That's a game Canada needs to win, should win, has to win, because this is a tournament with 48 teams and 3 teams getting out of most groups. You win one game, your odds are significantly increased. And I'm looking at this group. I think Canada can beat Qatar and draw at least one of the other teams, if not both, and potentially win one of if not both games. So I think that Canada has to look at this group and think, okay, getting out now, like if you don't get out, it will be seen as a failure. And I think for me, that's a good thing. So there's some groups where you get it out and you're thinking, oh, shoot, this is 22 again. They might not even get out of their group.
I think for me, it was a very similar approach to what Alistair Johnston said on TSN as well, that this wasn't the group that everything has to go right and maybe you can get out of the group. That was the feeling in 2022, that like if Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David are at their best, you can probably get out of the group. This is a group where things can't go wrong, but they don't have to be perfect. Like if you have a healthy roster, you can beat Switzerland. If you have a healthy roster, if it's Italy, you can go toe-to-toe with Italy. I think Italy in that first game is going to be a challenge, playing their first World Cup game in 11 years, should it be them. If it's not them, I would favor Canada against any of the other opponents, even though they had some trouble against Wales before Derek Cornelius's free kick in the friendly. But Switzerland seems like a winnable game, or at least a drawable game. I can picture the score graphics that say 1-1 in that one and 4-1 in the Qatar game for some way too early predictions. But the way that these games are laid out as well in the order of schedule, and Alex, you and I spoke about the order of schedule as well, you're potentially starting with your most difficult game, should it be Italy. And I think there's a part of us that actually hopes it's Italy to have that preparation. And then your second game is Qatar. Everything rides on getting a win in that game, but it potentially makes that Switzerland game a must not lose.
Yeah, I think the way the fixtures shake down is fantastic as well. What will be weird for them, and I wonder if it will, affect the players. And look, I think we're going to see the impact of kickoff times, and certainly for the matches that are outdoors, the weather will really play a factor in the quality. One of the things people ask all the time: why was the World Cup so good in Qatar? Why was the quality of play so incredible? Because we've seen in big tournaments past, and you can even say that with the expansion of the Euros, you have seen a bit of a dip in quality. It's not that the expansion has been bad, let's say, but international soccer as a whole has not been the viewing spectacle that it used to be. It certainly isn't the best soccer spectacle that we have. If you're trying to introduce somebody to the sport, you might get them on national pride and identity. But if you want to sell them how good it is, international soccer in quality has dipped considerably. The most entertaining soccer to watch, undeniably, is the UEFA Champions League. But in Qatar, because of the kickoff times, because it was balanced, I think the schedule is far more balanced. And because of the temperature, which actually it was quite cool in comparison to European summers or being played in a typical European summer, and certainly what we're going to see here in North America and particularly in the States, those kickoff times are going to be huge. And so for Canada being indoors twice, but that 12 o'clock game against Switzerland, I just wonder if you're going to see, it'll be 12 o'clock Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern. I just wonder if you're going to see that have an impact on some of those groups. And for Canada at that point, look, by that point, you hope that doesn't matter. I agree that if it's Italy first, it's great to have them first because the pressure is going to be on the Azzurri coming back to the World Cup for having missed two, and just the pressure in general, the expectation that comes with the weight of being a 12th ranked seed in the world. Like, I think we can all agree they haven't looked like that. Now, they're not as bad as being in the playoffs might suggest. And you look at the other European playoff teams, and Italy are by far the strongest. But they are potentially not beatable, but Canada can, as you said, like go toe to toe with them for a significant stretch, I think. And because the pressure will be on them first, I love that fixture is first. And while Switzerland is probably the most tactical and technical of the group, including one of the other three teams that Canada would get if it's not Italy, I really like the way that falls. And you can kind of tell from the confidence that Jesse Marsch spoke with, it wasn't just for the cameras. Like, I think he also thinks the same thing, that it sets up well for them to put it all on the line potentially. And they will be focused. We talk about expectation. Their expectation will be to win the group because they want to stay in Vancouver for that round of 32 game.
Yeah, one other thing that stands out kind of when looking at this journey for Canada, and again, like if it is Italy to open it and then going to Qatar and then finishing with Switzerland, like even this Italy, for the ranking they had a solid campaign. Like they just kind of got Norway out at the wrong time, Norway on the cusp. Maybe they're ranked a little lower than they should have been because they've underperformed so much in past years. Maybe now next going forward, they're going to be a pot one team in UEFA draws and not a pot two team as I think they were when that group was drawn out. Like this Italy team, like there's a lot of good players that I like Gianluigi Donnarumma was fantastic at the Euros, and he's grown a lot as a goalkeeper. Alessandro Bastoni, I'll always have a lot of time for in terms of one of the best center backs in the world. We've seen Locatelli at Juventus with Jonathan David, Nico Barella. When Tajon Buchanan was there, like you realize how good of a player, but there's still not like that star on that team, like that true superstar that you're looking at is like, okay, maybe Bastoni. Because I guess at some points he was in some pretty big discussions last year when Inter were really cruising. And that's kind of how I feel about Canada's group as a whole. Feels like it's four unspectacular, unsexy teams that are more about their team than they are stars. And I think that's something that's interesting because Canada can look at this group and think they might have the biggest star of all with Alphonso Davies, like genuinely. And you compare that to Qatar when they were with Belgium, Morocco, Croatia, and it was like stars falling out of the wazoo. Like you got Hakimi, you still had like a closer to prime Kevin De Bruyne. You got Luka Modric. It was just so much star power, so much pizzazz, a lot going on. When you're looking at this group and you're looking at Granit Xhaka for Switzerland, again, really good player, not the kind of guy that you're going to be looking at in this tournament. And you compare to, say, I don't know, like the group I with Senegal, Norway, France, and whoever poor soul has to come out of the playoff to go join those three teams and basically get waxed for 3 games. It feels like this group does lack those stars. Qatar as well, like good team, but Akram Afif, he's not a guy that most people outside the sicko soccer world are going to know of. And of course, with Italy, I just went through those names. That's another thing where Canada will look at these games in the schedule and they'll think, okay, why not go at it? Let's start with in Italy if that's the case. A game like that could also set the tone for a tournament, because imagine there's going to be a lot of people watching that game because Italy's back for the first time in a long time. Canada gets a draw or a win. The legitimacy that would give their tournament versus opening the tournament and you get like Qatar or some pot 3 or pot 4 team that no one really rates, and then Canada beats them, like, oh, there's the hosts getting off to a first World Cup win. Italy sets the tone that it doesn't have to be a win, just getting a draw. You go into Qatar and then you win, you get those 4 points on the board. I think that's a good way to set the tone heading into that last game against Switzerland. And what I will say to that Switzerland point, another reason why I'm fine with it being Switzerland, Game 3, as we mentioned, everything will be on the line. Potentially Canada might have to win that game to go through, or they draw that game. Are you not a little more confident in it being Switzerland than it being Croatia or Morocco or some of those other teams mentioned, where, again, there's stars that could break open the game, there's pedigree, there's experience? Personally, that's something I've been thinking about. If BC plays next June, I'll be happy going into that game against Switzerland no matter what the stakes are, because I feel like Canada will be able to go out and make something happen.
And when you look at Canada's potential opponents in that first game, we were speaking about whether you want this to feel like a World Cup. And if it's not Italy, does it feel like a World Cup in the same sense that it did in 2022 and that the tournament has felt in the past? Because when that schedule came out yesterday, I didn't quite feel it during the draw, but when the schedule came out, I felt like there were just so many games that came out, especially for Vancouver and Toronto in terms of the schedule. Like you'll get some amazing matches for Canada, and there's the potential of that Toronto knockout game to be England versus Portugal, which would be an absolute spectacle. And Brendan, I'd imagine you'd be, on pins and needles for that whole time. But it just seems like it doesn't feel like the World Cup in Canada's group, and the schedule that Canada's getting is not the World Cup in the same way that it could have been. Brendan.
100%. I had the exact same reaction to it as well, where, we had so much anticipation and excitement. And you see that there's a couple of powers. It's great to have the idea of Luka Modric and Croatia on the pitch at BMO Field, and to have Germany there as well. Like, they are a power. It's great to have that team from pot 1, but it does feel very underwhelming. And to get Panama twice just almost feels like an insult. And that's not to insult Panama, but I mean, can we get somebody we haven't seen before? What Thomas Christensen's got some favorite restaurants that they're like, who does he know? How did they get a familiar venue like Toronto? But yeah, I had very much the same feeling. To answer your question, I do think it will feel different if it's Bosnia. It would feel different if it's Wales even. The atmosphere would still be big, but one of my first reactions, honestly, before sitting down to even write on Canadian Soccer Daily, was there's a lot of people that have already spent a lot of money on these tickets and feel like, damn, the resale value for these is not going to be great. And, when it comes to dynamic pricing, I really do wonder, Senegal against that last group in Toronto is Senegal against that playoff winner. And I wonder, how low those tickets are going to go. If the starting price was $225, are we going to see what we saw at the Club World Cup this past summer, where I think it was the quarterfinal at MetLife. I forget who it was, but maybe it's Borussia Dortmund. On match day, there were tickets available for $23. Those same tickets would have been listed for $225 at some point in the tournament, and there would have been people that would have paid that. So I was thinking about that dynamic pricing, and then Alex, I feel like the Vancouver slate, isn't really more attractive, which is disappointing. It's nice to have Belgium, but it's not the same Belgium as 3.5 years ago either.
Yeah, I mean, of the pot 1 teams that you could have gotten, I'm looking and I'm thinking, man, if you Spain, Argentina, France, England, Brazil, Portugal, Netherlands, Germany. Those are teams with certain levels of stars and etc. Belgium, yes, they still got Kevin De Bruyne. Jeremy Doku is making waves now, but this is a Belgian team that peaked, 3, 4, 5 years ago. A lot of those stars, like, you're not getting maybe the same version of a Romelu Lukaku you would have gotten before. Of course, no more Eden Hazard. He was a true star. That is a bit of an interesting point for Vancouver, that a lot of the games as well, like the curtain opener, while it's going to be a fun game from a city's perspective because of all the Aussies, like Australia versus potentially Turkey, whoever's going to come out of that UEFA pot group, kind of like, okay. But that's kind of the feel for this World Cup when you've got this many teams. Is it's going to be interesting later in the tournament, because I think you're going to have more big, like there's going to be less big teams banana peeling like they have in recent tournaments. Like, it feels less like that you're going to get a Germany doesn't even get out of the group, or X team doesn't even get out of the group. But what you're going to see is, man, when you get to some of those quarterfinals, round of 16, there's going to be some big games. Like, some of the matches people were saying is possibilities. Like, there's a really very real possibility you could see like an Argentina Portugal in a quarterfinal in this bracket. Some of these other big games, and you're like, you could actually see that happening, because a lot of times there's always this hypotheticals in every tournament, but then some team will finish second in their group and ruin it and make this weird lopsided draw. So it will be interesting to see. I think for people in Vancouver who just want to see the stars, all of a sudden you became a big Portugal fan, because Portugal wins their group and wins their round of 32 match. They would play at Vancouver. Interestingly, Brendan, there is now a world where if Canada wins their group, Portugal wins their group, and they both win the round of 32, you'd be at BC Place watching Portugal versus Canada, which would be an absolute roller coaster of emotions for you, I imagine. But looking at the draw as a whole, there's a lot of what ifs like that. And for Canada, that playoff A is another what if, because Italy coming, like you mentioned, Ben, absolute blockbuster start. Like, if you think about it, couldn't be written better. If it's Bosnia and Herzegovina, there'll be a decent chunk of fans. There's a decent community out in Toronto and in Canada at large, but it's not going to hit the same Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina to open a tournament.
Yeah, on that point quickly, Ben, I wish there was a way to flip a couple of these games. Like, Mo Salah in Vancouver, I think is great, but is it going to have the same impact and the same atmosphere? Is it going to slap like Mo Salah in Toronto? No, I don't think it will. Like, if we could have just flipped Croatia and Panama to Vancouver for that Egypt game in Toronto, Panama didn't get to play at BC Place. Give them their chance at the World Cup.
Well, yeah, they didn't get to play at BC Place in 2022, and I was talking to Mike Martinago before the draw, former TSN 1040 host, and we were saying, how awesome would it be if Canada had drawn Iran for the World Cup in Vancouver?
Yeah,
it would have been the debacle part 2.
Yeah, and on that point too, like the suspicion was the reason they made the world wait 24 hours to play. To plot and place these teams was because they were going to manipulate Iran not playing in the States. And look at them, 2 games in LA and a game in Seattle. Like that was the biggest surprise to me when I saw how the fixtures shake down.
Tarantulas, I think they call it, with all the Persians out in LA. So they won't be mad at that possibility.
When you look at the draw as a whole, though, of course, it goes all the way up to Group L this time. Is there any group that really stands out that you're excited to watch? I know, Alex, you zoned in on that Senegal group.
That group's going to be, I've already had some good conversations with some friends about what Senegal France is going to look like next year. That's going to be, a lot of people hoping just for a rematch of 2002 and what that entails. That group is just wild, because it literally has everything you'd want in terms of a group of, you got 3 very good teams, you got stars across all teams. At the same time, some of it's softened, because then you remember, oh yeah, this isn't like normal World Cups where 2 teams get out of a group, and you see a group like that, you're like, oh shoot, one of those 3 teams is going home right away. Whereas now with third place teams, you just think, okay, surely all 3 teams get out the group, right? Right. Like, there's not going to be a Norway getting grouped, Senegal getting grouped, France getting grouped. At the same time, like, there's a lot of little micro matchups that really entertain me. Like, you can't tell me that Brazil Morocco is not going to be an absolute thriller of a game, like especially how
at
Morocco
MetLife
is.
as well. That's the first game in New York. That's going to be incredible. The atmosphere.
Like, yeah, the fans that are going to be there from both teams, just the stakes of that. I'm really, really intrigued by what that could offer. There's a few other games that stood out to me going through the board.
Portugal, Uzbekistan. It has to be.
Yeah, no, maybe not quite on that one. Portugal, Colombia, though, I think could be some good juice in terms of that one. That one's played in Hard Rock in Miami, so a little Ronaldo in Messi's territory. That's going to make for some potentially interesting crowds. England, Croatia, I thought was very intriguing because I still remember 2018, that semifinal, just the stakes of that. But to be honest, a lot of the best matches are going to start in the knockouts because, again, a lot of these bigger teams avoided themselves maybe more than they would have in past draws.
It's going to be funny watching Ronaldo in Portugal in Miami because we now associate Miami as Messi's part of America. But I do think that it's very advantageous for Portugal, particularly managing Cristiano Ronaldo's situation, that their opening 2 games are indoors in Houston. So Portugal has the 2 games in Houston, and then they close the group in Miami against Colombia. I think that sets up well for them, that they should be, wanting and expecting to go to Miami with 6 points already in the bag. And then they can kind of, manage that. And you're going to see these European teams that have to do that with the heat because it really is going to play a factor.
I think for me, the most exciting game has to be that World Cup opener. Mexico versus South Africa is going to be awesome at the Estadio Azteca. And then I just can't wait to see the fan matchup between Brazil and Scotland. The match itself might not be great, but you have the Brazil fans and the Scotland fans. They couldn't be 2 different sides of global football fans. Like, that's just going to be a spectacle to see those 2 clash. And hopefully,
where is that game?
Hooliganism are fighting. I haven't. I just have the draw up in front of me. I didn't take a look where that
is. Brazil or Scotland versus Morocco, or what did you just say was Scotland versus Brazil? That will be played in Hard Rock Stadium on June 24th. So another Miami game. They got some. When you compare the offerings in Vancouver and
how
Toronto,
surprising,
always Miami getting the good stuff out there.
Before we put the bow on this, I need to get 2 minutes of comedy from you guys. Come on, that draw show, the spectacle that was the draw where we had to wait 15 hours before we saw the balls come out of the pot. What did you make of the whole thing? I mean, are you also astonished that Wayne Gretzky has never traveled beyond Turks and Caicos, that he doesn't know other places in the Caribbean? I couldn't believe that.
I liked that they had the leaders of each country take the initial balls out. I thought that was a good touch.
Answer,
it's a shame.
That is a very boring answer.
It's a shame that one of them is not the best leader, but I thought that was a cool touch for the first tri-hosted World Cup.
Well,
but
I did not expect
that was my main takeaway.
Yeah. Did you expect Alex Ben's Pierre Poilievre allegiance to come out here on the show? I did not think that was coming. Just bashing the leader.
Yeah, I didn't realize Ben was gunning for a career where one day he's trying to be a free leader of something, maybe a city, maybe a province, maybe. That was the most my
favorite part of the Big Soccer Show was the politicians. I love the politicians. What the hell, Ben?
I was gonna be like, I'm so shook that you almost derailed my thought. I was gonna make some joke about, for a guy that allegedly loves a drink, loves a bit of booze, and Wayne Gretzky, and he's a hockey player, that the one country he couldn't pronounce was Curacao. You can't tell me this guy hasn't had a blue Curacao on a beach somewhere in Fort Lauderdale. And he calls it a blue Caraco. Because that was absurd. When he came out, and it was just so many layers. Did no one take him and be like, by the way, here are all the names you might have to pronounce so you're not ending up in a stage and calling a country North Macedonia? It's rough too, that in a draw of it was so American. It was American. Tom Bogert summed it up best, where he went on the BBC and he had his hands up. He's like, guys, I apologize for America. It was somehow the Canadian that ended up stealing the show, looking like the guy who had no idea what he was doing. He was absolutely confused. Not a good, again, Wayne Gretzky's reputation continues to get absolutely sullied. That one did hurt a bit, because the rest of it you kind of expected. You knew Shaq was going to crack some jokes. You knew that, that you were going to see a little too much of Donald Trump than you would have hoped. I won't even get into the Peace Prize because the whole notion of it is absolutely preposterous at core. But Wayne Gretzky not even being able to pronounce one of his potential favorite drinks will still take the cake. So maybe I'll go enjoy a blue Carafa for him tonight.
The other part that stood out to me, how about Gianni Infantino coming out and getting the crowd to go, USA, USA, Canada, Canada, Mexico? That was really rough. Like, I tweeted, what is happening at the World Cup draw at that point? And I think people responded to that throughout the draw because the thing lasted almost 3.5 hours, Brendan.
Yeah, it was a long show, man. It was. To Alex's point about Gretzky, when he paused after saying North, immediately I thought, oh my God, do not say macadamia. Do not, please. But yeah, and then he looks at Samantha Johnson, a friend of the show, and Rio Ferdinand, and goes, I had to get all the tough names. And it's like, I thought, yeah, you did, because that just shows you how they value hockey in the United States, the big four sports. Oh yeah, just give Wayne the international places. No one
top four.
No one told him.
But then he mispronounced Jordan, Jordan of all places.
It's funny though, because as soon as he said that, I remember as a kid. I don't know if this was a Canadian thing or just when you talk about that real Canadian accent that he has very much, and you could really hear it maybe for the first time on that show, because I don't think it doesn't stand out to me that way when he's doing the hockey on TNT, but. On that stage with the other accents on that stage, and particularly the Americans, he just sounded so Canadian.